Jack, I want to know, have we underrated Liverpool, Jack? Because at the start of the season, it was City, Arsenal, and then everybody else kind of come into it. But we know in the past few years what Liverpool represent and how they've been able to go toe to toe. Granted, they only beat City once, but they have went toe to toe with them and took them right to the wire a number of occasions. And traditionally, they are their closest rival. Have we underrated them? Have we looked past them this season? Because Jack, you look at the start of it, three very difficult fixtures, well, two very difficult fixtures away from home against Liverpool, Chelsea and Newcastle. And Jack, for them to get 4 points from that is incredible, especially
Right.
the win against Newcastle, the way that they did it. We'll get into the rest of the stuff, but have we underrated Liverpool? Should they be going for the league title, Jack?
I'm still going to say no, and here's why, and I will try and explain myself. If everything goes swimmingly, and I'm well aware when I'm telling you this, I know you could do this with every single team, but just like dream with me here for a second. If everything goes well, so there's no injuries, everybody's fit, like they're playing Klopp style, their discipline's not an issue. Obviously, we saw the Van Dijk red card and all this kind of stuff. Of course, they can compete with Man City. But I think anybody who's watching it with a rational head on their shoulders sees the amount of questions and just thinks there's too many questions. Even if they answer most of those questions positively, they're going to still have a couple of questions here and there where you go, you know what? I just don't know about that one. So, and I'll give you a few of those questions because I think we've talked about this, but I'm happy to refresh everybody's memory. Mo Salah's 31. Mo Salah's their best player and is still going to score a lot of goals.
100%.
But is Mo Salah going to be doing what he was doing in his late 20s when Liverpool were at their best, with an 150 million euro bid on the table from a Muslim country? And he's the face of this, not the face of this religion, that's ridiculous, but he's kind of an idol to a lot of these people in that part of the world, right? So that's a huge thing to dissuade him. Mane's gone in recent years. Roberto Firmino's gone in recent years. Henderson's gone in recent years. Oxlade-Chamberlain, stop me before I go on for the rest of the video, naming all the players they've gone. Trent in a new position, right? Injury issues. Is Darwin Núñez the guy? So on and so forth. The new midfield getting to know one another. They lost out to Moises Caicedo. They lost out to Enzo Fernandez. They lost out to
Jude Bellingham, Lavia.
Dude, where do you go from here? And all these things start to add up. And for me, I just think to myself, they're going to answer some of these questions. Like the midfield might be fine. The attackers might be fine. But is Jota going to be fit the whole year? Is Diaz going to be fit the whole year? Is Núñez going to... All these questions, I just think to myself, they're not going to answer yes to all these questions. So I'm going to rule them out of the title. Top four, we can have a conversation. I think they're probably going to be right in the mix till the end. I think my most recent table prediction, I had them fourth or fifth. But I just think the title is too much of a stretch because, James, we know what we're going to get from Man City. And their best player is out and is going to be back in January or February time. And you and I still don't think that's an issue because the question marks around City aren't that many. And if there are any, we know how they're going to be answered. James, is Doku going to be a success? Yeah, I bet. Maybe not straight away, but eventually he's going to be a success. If they get Núñez, is he going to be a success? Yes, probably. Maybe not straight away, but probably, like we've seen with Grealish, right? Kovacic is, Gvardiol's going to be great. With Man City, there are less questions, and I just feel like they are outright the best team in the league. No one's touching them.
As you were talking, Jack, so many stuff were going through my head, and you said some points that really swayed me here. But I like to say, you know what? What's happened has happened. For me, them guys are gone. They're not coming back right now. Let's look at what Liverpool have today. And Jack, what they do have offensively is an arsenal of killers, Jack. An arsenal of players who, at any point can pop off. Diego Jota, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of him, he has something about him. He has that bit of X factor about him. Cody Gakpo, I still want to see more of him, but I've seen enough to say that he's going to be a good player there. Listen, Sadio Mane, you know what it is. Luis Diaz, a lot of people consider him top 5 in his position in the Premier League and maybe even in the world to a certain point. I don't think so, but yet there. And another one that we're going to mention, Darwin Núñez. We knew that once he gets going, once he pops off, it's going to be a problem. And Jackie's seen that. He's a very, very tough guy to stop. And they have all this amazing attacking talent. And that's what is going to say, why shouldn't they not challenge? But my biggest issue with Liverpool is going back there. Because, Jack, there's going to be days where it's just not quite clicking. Yeah,
Right.
the forward goals are just not quite going in. You got to stop it like the other end. And my issue with Liverpool is that they still concede a lot of chances, Jack. They haven't had a clean sheet so far yet in this Premier League season. Granted, it's only been 3 games, but I felt the game against Chelsea, Jack. Chelsea could have easily won that game. Newcastle, that was their fault. Granted, Liverpool stayed in the game, and I mentioned the killers that they have there. But that was Newcastle's fault there. Virgil van Dijk.
Yep. Liverpool didn't win the game. Newcastle lost the game. Is the way I would describe that. You know what I mean?
It was a proper snatch and grab from Liverpool. And I just look at somebody like Virgil van Dijk. I remember one time looking at him, and there was like an invincible shield around him. You couldn't get near him. It was defenders were having to mark Virgil van Dijk, and Virgil van Dijk marking them. But now it's like he seems vulnerable, and I just look at his Liverpool backline. Trent, you know what we're going to get going forward. But we're also going to get what we got for our first goal against Aaron Gordon, Jack. These are the issues that I think that Liverpool are going to have. Granted, we're going to see some good stuff there. So Boslar is some like Jackie player. He's a player. You know, McAllister. We know what they do.
Yeah.
But the issue is just going back there. Yeah, they may score 100 goals, Jack. Maybe 120, but they might concede 50 or 60. Because Alisson's great and all that, but when you're having 1v1s and big shots against you and constantly having to make saves, it is difficult, and that's the biggest thing for me, Jack.
Yeah, Alisson's unreal. I don't think we can, and I know
unbelievable. I do believe he's still the second best goalkeeper. That's just listen.
That's fair. But for me, the other thing that I think is concerning, and hey, we still got a few days of the transfer window here left. I don't know how you go from bidding 110 million for Moises Caicedo or whatever their final bid for Caicedo was to getting Endo, whoever, who I'm not going to lie to you, I've never heard of. I don't know how that happens. I think Alexis McAllister's overrated. I really do rate Dominic Szoboszlai. But James, another midfielder's got to come in. And you know my thoughts on Virgil van Dijk. I don't want to open up that conversation, but he needs that hard-working midfield in front of him so he can be his best self. And I don't know if he has that at the moment.
I mentioned about the defense. If Liverpool can somehow get that defensive midfielder, maybe Sofian Amrabat, which I do believe if they bring someone like him in, Jack, we're having a different sort of conversation here. Yeah, and maybe a centre-back and a right-back for Trent. But, Jack, you have to also bear this in mind. How much are Liverpool going to take into the Europa League? Do you really think that they're going to put all their eggs in basket? They're really going to go for the Europa League? Maybe if they can get through the group stage, which they should do with a lesser team there. But are they going to be playing Mo Salah in them games? Are they going to be playing your main starter like Luis Diaz in there? I don't think so. So their concentration, Jack, is literally going to go into these 38 games in the Premier League, and that may favour them, Jack. That really may favour them.
I will say, though, James, that even not at their best, they can half-arse their way to a quarterfinal. And then the moment the quarterfinal comes, Klopp can go, maybe we should win this. And then quarterfinal, they get a good draw, which they probably will, and they can beat that team. And then, James, when you're in the semi-final, you're 3 games away from a trophy and guaranteed Champions League spot in pot 1. So, like I said, in the group stages, they might not care. First couple of knockout rounds, they might not care, but they're going to start caring because this team is good enough to half-arse their way to the later stages of that competition. It's like any of the big English teams in that competition. It's not that big of a deal. This isn't, and I'm, trying to be self-deprecating here. This isn't Roma, where like winning a Europa League is a really big deal and it's a guarantee for Champions League. Liverpool will think they'll get there anyway, but I think they'll just like the opportunity to win a trophy if they can and be as high a pot as they can for next year's draw.
And one more thing, and I'm going to mention him because I do believe he should get a big mention in this, is Darwin Núñez, Jack. I mentioned last season when we had the thing about his overall play is better than Erling Haaland. In fact, I believe a lot of strikers' overall play is better than Erling Haaland. But Jack, he really causes serious problem. His movement troubles defenders. The issue with him is that He wasn't taking them chances. And if he did take them chances that Jack, he was able to create, his teammates were able to create for him, and also he was able to create for himself with his movement, we may be looking at another 38, record-breaking season, Jack. That's the problem that he causes. And to be fair to him, it seems like he lost his way in the first two games, but he's back at it now. And with them two goals there, at some point I said it's going to click. With these two goals right now, with the way he came on, not just he just scored off a little tap in, Jack. These were two incredible finishes. Maybe that might give him the confidence, to go in the next three games and believe, listen, the striker spot is mine. You guys are going to play around me. Mo Salah, you're going to feed me. And if they're feeding him and he's taking them chances, Jack,
again,
it's an
I
issue.
think
It really is an issue, Jack.
To very briefly touch on it, I think that 150 million euro bid from Saudi Arabia, I think you take. I think you invest in a holding midfielder and you invest in a right winger. And I think they need to be younger and they need to fit what you want to get the best out of somebody like Darwin Núñez. And James, I do think it will click eventually. I do think, again, he does have that physical talent and he just needs to be coached and taught, because he will get there eventually. And James, the biggest wild card, the only guy who's even kind of close to knocking Pep Guardiola off his throne as the best manager in the world, is Jurgen Klopp. And my admiration for him, it's arguably my favorite manager of all time. I think he's amazing. His teams are always great to watch. He's a character, charismatic, all these kinds of things.
I think he's a bit of a moaner.
He does that too. But James, hey, Sir Alex Ferguson was a bit of a moaner, right? We've seen some greats be that kind of way. I think he has enough about him to create a willpower in a team to be unbeatable, to be 10 men and to still go on and beat a big rival like Newcastle.
Well, they showed that, but Liverpool fans, football fans, where are Liverpool going to finish this season? Are they going to win the league? Comment down below, let us know. And also, there's a little bit left in the transfer window. What players are Liverpool going to bring in? Please comment down below, guys. Let us know. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Box to Box Football, and we'll see you next time.